Alrighty, daily trading review. It is Monday, the 7th of March, 2022. 13 minutes after the close here. Let's get over dollar volume quick before we get into the undergoings of the day. NASDAQ, $257 billion volume, 13 minutes after the close. NYSE, $483 billion volume on the day. OTC's $3.03 billion volume trading on the day. SPY, a hard down day, looking like 3% in the red. We're showing here from the close of Friday over last week. Looking into more of, with specifically to my futures trading, that I'm still definitely devoting a lot of time, data collection, and just mental capacity into developing more of a ES daily style time frame trade that looks to take advantage of very consistent and repeatable, profitable win days, but also look to increase a high hit rate, but then of course succumb to when the losing days come, that they end up being quite a bit larger. But looking at how those can level out over a longer term time span of trading that strategy, looking for an automated strategy, especially of how we can work that in and just find a little niche that way and develop some side cash without our need to be there for it. So worked out beautifully on this one today, looking at from the open on Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, coming into play for today of how that worked out points wise there. But then, yeah, of a day to not be directional, just playing. So tempting for me of how many times I've done that before too, of gosh, I should really just be testing the waters and finding an area, or even like an area like this as it comes to test view up here and then rejects off of that, getting short one MES contract and saying, okay, I want to just test the waters directionally. I don't think I'm going to be correct 100% of the time. I don't think that I'm just going to nail or slam dunk home run lottery trades like this that end up just dropping 200 points nearly on the ES or futures wise that way. But yeah, certainly today was the day to do that. But these are the types of trades that I want to do this for, to expand myself of like not only profit-wise, but just of saying, okay, what other factors led for today to be a trend day? Just looking on SPY itself of where have we come from the previous range of the previous trading days? Are we in need for a break of that range? Are other factors? I mean, of course, we got this crazy just world environment going on right now that's invigorating this market that we do have, especially in the commodity sector of oil. We'll get into those in a little bit, but just looking at those factors that way and then saying, hey, what are the key features that design for trend days to set up like this? But even at that too, of not getting, I'm very glad I'm stepping away from keeping that like 15-minute to 30-minute window from the open time frame. I'm getting away from that more so because I do feel like there is some opportunity at some points, especially on Fridays, for them being the most volatile day out of the open. But just the risk reward is not working out to do it that way, as today proves. And especially trying to look at it at a full day context is most definitely not worth that risk reward, even over a longer term time frame type of trade style there. So glad I'm stepping away from that, looking more into, like I mentioned, with the ES daily time frame of kind of sorting myself right around the open of the ES session from the previous day that bleeds into the next trading day that way. So that is one I'm going to explore for a little bit more over the next few weeks and try to automate and keep myself updated through these daily trading recaps. I also wanted to go on to directional SPY. So yeah, that's all I came in with today, futures wise. So then now bleeding into the absolute insaneness that is this oil sector going berserk. No real defined leader. We got lots of crazy tickers developing the watch list continually as more tickers pop up on the scanner, but no real defined leader, and really came into today that I did very short biased. We're seeing, I'll just start off, go ahead with INDO that I started off here. I think I actually traded it second, but traded both INDO and IMPP. Very small size on both of them, just and I alluded to, I'm trying to get so many different features here that I want to get to on all these stocks, but I'll start off with, I kept my size very small on both of these stickers because I wanted to be able to feel and keep my perspective as open as possible with these charts. And also because, and I kept myself that way too, because I came into today very short bias for whatever reason of just kind of being devil's advocate and saying, we are a little bit up too much, and regardless of everything of this sector is going off of that main leader of the commodity itself of oil. But in just trying to be that devil's advocate or play, hey, I think there could be some short side in here. I also, as we're just continuing to just be crazy and bring in so many different players and eyeballs on these stocks and in turn perspectives that can play onto how these candles are forming. I then reverted to saying I'm not going to try to make a home run slam dunk here on any of these trades or try and throw big size at it when I really have not been trading these recently at all. I'm not trying to be an absolute hero, and it's not like I'm foreign to them whatsoever, but just saying, hey, let's keep ourselves small, size back into it, but these are certainly the days that you go hard after it when we've just been waiting for so long for a hot sector like this to push an entire basket of stocks like this, to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But yeah, so many different ways, so many different perspectives that could go on these charts today, but this is all just going to be of my own dealings with the inner workings that I was seeing and what my own biases were carrying into today. And I want to say that I'm trying to carry the weight of, or trying to identify every and any perspective that could come in on this, but it's mind-numbing to even think about, which is with the volume that's coming in and these charts of how they're working, of the many different perspectives and ways one could look at these charts on the day for how you're getting, if you're holding a position already, for how the charts are been developed, of looking at other charts at the same time to see how they're working, and comparing that to the leader of the commodities in that oil sector. Yeah, lots of different just scrambled brain ideologies going on there. But for the specific trades themselves, starting off with INDO, I only carried 2 shares. I wanted to see a dip and rip on all of them. I wanted to see, 10, 15 minutes play out of just haywire doing whatever it wants to do, maybe shaking out a few shorts in the beginning within the first 2 minutes, scaling back down a little bit, trying to tease a little bit with some pulls to VWAP, and then climbs back down, breaking the lows, teasing out a few longs on that way, and just kind of wishy-washing everybody and getting out the early eager traders, and then actually defining a hard, nice little dip and rip opportunity there. And that's kind of what I did find with this specific trade, but I thought we were going to start ripping off of that little 3 minutes here. I think IMPP did a similar thing out of the gate there. So just, I was like, unfortunate that it started going, but I'll keep it on the afternoon watch to see if there's any opportunity developing of more shorts getting delayed into the afternoon session and the close there. But sure enough, found a nice little entry here, 488 I got at the scale back above VWAP to the upside there, as it's just continuing to put in higher lows with this little reclaim closer to that 30-minute from the morning open, the market open. Time frame there, scaled out with the first one right at that previous high, that first share, which, if I did have a real position size, probably maybe half or less that I would have been scaling out of my position size, which is pretty comparable to what I have. And then just kind of sitting on my hands and saying, okay, I'm going to risk my entry. If we start to break there, obviously it's going to start tanking with a lot of other longs potentially in the same boat as me. How many times have we done this before when it's not been a hot sector market, that we get these dip and rip opportunities that turn into just long bag holder slams that just break your knees as soon as they even touch or come close to VWAP, and the feet fall out beneath them. But sure enough, this one had some nice price action, continuing higher lows, pressing new highs, and eventually I lucked out, kind of scaled into near the high. Of course, it was like $2-3 more within seconds, even for how high price of a stock this was before it halted here before 10:10. Reclaimed a little bit closer back to VWAP to that initial exit, that initial high of day. Continued to press again. At this point, I think I'm 7 away from the market, 7 away from the screens, thinking that, okay, we need a little bit of a rest, but sure enough, there's still plenty of opportunity left there. Some more shorts getting squeezed into a halt. The halts, again, are just so unfortunate of how they kind of ruin the party at times. IMPP had a lot more, I believe, that we'll get into that one after this one. But they just ruin the party at some times, but it's good enough that for how many stocks were moving, there was always usually one of the CEI, of the HUSAs, of the list goes on of how many there freaking are. There's always one of them at least moving, and moving decently with volume and with good percentage moves. So it wasn't like it was just kind of up a creek without a paddle once you got halted that you couldn't do anything. But even then, on top of that, trying to use the others as an indicator for, hey, are these stocks moving similarly as sympathy plays, since it's all the same sector? At times you could make some amount of correlation, but then at other times it was just like, okay, you're moving a little bit differently. I can't say that you're moving quite coherently. And again, like I mentioned in the introduction, there wasn't really one specific leader that was just leading the charge. First it was HUSA, and then now IMPP, and then, okay, now INDO is actually going much greater, and then lots of different leaders of this race. But I think, all just boils down to back to that. It's oil. It's not like there's one AMC or GME. It is a little bit different of approach than that way for this sector-wide continuation of these small cappers, of these big cappers, these crazy tickers. So yeah, back to INDO, scaled out luckily near that first half, but sure enough, it had a lot more room left to go to the upside after my exit there for the day. But I'm certainly not mad at that trade. I can give myself it's an A+ idea. There was certainly a lot left more in the tank, and I can give myself an A grade for execution. I want to say that I shoulda, coulda, woulda in all of these thrown a bigger position size at it and actually been taking real size trades, position size trades. But that's always, hindsight is 20/20, and I think I am glad still, like I alluded to a little bit, of keeping that small size like on INDO and IMPP in order to keep my perspective and just total focus on the level 2 in time and sales, how everything was moving, very, very clear. Because if I did have that larger position, coming from not having really traded small cappers very recently and just kind of getting back into the flow of things, and then all of a sudden I can't be short with my margin counts as of other reasons that way, but if I did have a long position, a larger long position, then okay, all of a sudden we're in the red quite a significant amount, maybe not so crazily, like if I'm getting long here and it starts to pull back, it's not like breaking low of days yet, but even there, if I'm getting an entry at 48 and it's already back down to like 44, okay, geez, we're already down 10%. Oh, that's pretty unfortunate. Was I really willing to risk that much before I've trade? Like, for how fast-paced these decisions need to be made, of course. So yeah, in hindsight, I think I am glad that I took these smaller position size just for that P&L sake, to clear my head and to be able to learn as much as I could from that price action today that was available out there. Lots of opportunity, that was for sure. I think that's really all I had on IND. I'll get into IMPP now. IMPP. Crazy mover again here. Starting at the open of pre-market, coming into today, and a little bit of sell-off. And that's the reason why I was a little bit short biased that, okay, we're holding. I can see that it's just continuing to test these levels. But that just makes me think that it's just going to tear more, and not necessarily that it was going to die off or today was going to be the top or this pre-market was going to be top on IMPP specifically, but more so that, hey, I could see us having a harder sell-off in the morning, taking away a lot of those hopes and joys of the potential dip and rippers that would want to be playing off of something like this, that I know definitely well enough of the type of mentality that I carried earlier on in my trading career of seeing anything that was up, or even if it was a hot sector, it was especially in the hot 2020 market, that anything that was up, it was just like, okay, I see green, I want to buy so I can see more green. And that's, I unfortunately got rewarded for that at times, but I'm on days like this that it's not a crazy 2020 market, that different variables can add up that way, and you end up getting smacked to the downside at some points, when you're just not able to cut losses quickly and adjust to what the flow of the chart and the trade is on that specific day. So IMPP specifically, I had 3 trades on it. First trade was a paper short, identifying, like IMPP, like I mentioned with INDO, that it just ramped too quickly. It obviously had a perfect little beautiful bounce here around this little, just above this 425 range, right around 430-ish, that it fell to there out of the gate, immediately squoze into a halt, opened, and then just kind of petered. And I think INDO was also halting at the same time, and then it was just kind of watching the both of those to see, okay, is one going to lead the other? Is one going to be an indicator of the other where it goes after that opens that way? So then as I'm seeing it just kind of peter and not continue to accelerate into another potential halt immediately after it already opened, as it's starting to break lows here, I felt I got a very nice entry through the TradingView paper trading platform. Starting in short there with however many shares, and then scaling out just a little bit to the break to the downside of VWAP there for how quick that move was, and then into the halt. I would be, if I had a real position, I would be scaling out as it was halting to the downside there. That was 9:41 Eastern time. And then we open, get a little bit of more downside, but again, basing right around that range, 430-ish, 44-ish. So I said, okay, I'm going to take off more there with my real, like that would have been half of my half position left, a quarter of the initial position, and then taking off the rest as it was breaking to the upside of VWAP. And then sure enough, at that point, I'm thinking, I think there is a lot of potential in this one, as it's now forcing me out of my short position. Normally, that doesn't just automatically mean, okay, if you don't want to be short anymore, then you obviously go long. Normally, that's not the case, but on this one, it's just, I think there's going to be a heck of a lot of shorts in this one, and it's just so early in the morning. I think there could be a lot of opportunity here, and sure enough, there was a little bit. I scaled out very early on this first trade. That was 20 shares, whatever I said there. Yeah, 20 shares, keeping it extremely small, but playing on that thesis that, gosh, I think this could ramp very easily and quickly before you even blink your eyes because of how many players are attracted to this one, the borrows that were out there. I forget the specific flow on this one, but at the end of the day, it don't matter. It's moving crazily, and that's all that really matters. In the end, price is the only thing that pays. We get a nice little squeeze to the upside to a new high of day, but it was very quick, if I remember correctly. And sure enough, it pulls back. And as it's testing this $5 whole dollar level area again, very preemptive in my exit, but I did save myself a little bit of if it did start to crack below my entry price and below VWAP, sure, I would have, I bet you dollars to donuts, if it started to test those levels, that a cascade would have ensued and broken to new low of day very, very rapidly. So in trying to avoid that, got out of the trade there, but sure enough, immediately rejects going lower, goes into a new halt to the upside there to new high of day. Dojis for the next candle out of there, and then continues to just rip and go all the way to $8. That was a crazy one. But letting it trickle, do whatever it wants to do, squeeze, come all the way back to VWAP, and then and coming back to the screen or pulling up this chart again, pretty much came back at like a perfect time as it was just continuing to hold here, putting these little higher highs. Volume starts to come in. I get another entry here with 10 shares on the second trade opportunity. Squeezes off of that, holds that level very well, puts in higher lows off of that, continues to test. I thought it was getting a little toppy here, so took off half of that trade. We get another squeeze with big volume off of that, but still not a new high of day, under that $8 range, but let it go into the afternoon session with that and still keeping 5 shares on that I had. Setting a limit order at that new high of day at $8, just under that, like $7.99, $7.97, whatever it was. And the thought process with that was, okay, well, if you think it's going to break, if you're still holding shares on and you think it's going to go to a new high of day, that's obviously a breakout trade. And you never want to set a profit target really on a breakout trade beforehand because you're in an entirely new land. Like there is no defined technical levels or support and resistance because it's just like the new frontier. But in that same breath, the breakout trade is, for how many times we've done it before, I don't want to say it's off of the back of that, but the breakout trade, the most consistent and repeatable, profitable way is to be selling into the strength of when the breakout actually happens. Because sure enough, and I don't want to say that I lucked out with this one, but how many times that happened before that this break to the new high of day ends up becoming the high of day, even though it did have a nice little 40-cent continuation from that initial high. These were the two candles. So that became the biggest candles of the day, and selling into that is really your only opportunity. And I'm trying to nickel and dime myself saying, well, I could see it going to 8.5 and just putting limit orders there and not willing to budge off of that just becomes very stupid. And charts like this reflect that point of just be selling into strength. And like the sense, your broker's got to take care of you either way of getting you the best fill. But it's just when it goes that fast and there's that much volume, that's your opportunity. And it's not a nickel and dime situation at that point. So I think was a good example of selling into the breakout versus trying to be so finicky about it for a final exit on that trade. Let it consolidate, do whatever it wanted to do, just getting very choppy and weird with this little range-bound trading that it did. Looking a little bit weaker into the close, but we'll see if it can hold these after hours here, have some more continuation before it closes this aftermarket, anything pre-markets tomorrow. Be very interesting to see on IMPP specifically. I think I give myself for that first paper short trade, both an A grade in idea and an A grade in execution of how I was holding myself accountable there for that second trade. An A idea as it's breaking to the upside out there, but B grade in execution of just a little bit too soon. I don't want to say it's a terrible grade. Obviously want better, but as the chart reflected, that wasn't the end of the trade. That was just a little bit too preemptive. But better safe than sorry, I think. So I'm not knocking my B grade for that one that I did receive or grade myself on that. And then for that final trade, A+ all around. Freaking beautiful opportunities for how it was holding. For, I could nitpick myself and say, yeah, just hold everything into that new breakout. But I think for how it was scaling out, taking profits along the way, sitting very nicely. The risk levels that I did set we did have this $6 whole dollar level area here that was just below VWAP, so you can obviously see where it wanted to bounce to and collect a few stops to test before it did start to ramp to a new high of day to squeeze those shorts that were obviously trying to play off of the downside move here, off of these two peaks. So A+ all around on that third little entry there. Yeah, first and second is written there, obviously, for the real trades on that. That was IMPP DWAC. Very beautiful. I mentioned this one on Friday that I did establish a little paper short position on Friday in this range as it was breaking new lows here. Not a very voluminous confirmed trade, and looking on the daily specifically and kind of taking out the craziness scale problem that was that initial move. Not like a panicking day, but like I mentioned on Friday as well, this is more of a market following type of stock now. That 3 out of 4 stocks obviously follow the market, but this one was definitely clinging to that line a lot more. And today was no different. 15% in the red from Friday's close that we're showing. So very nice little opportunity that I can kind of say maybe lucked out on just because of how red the market was today. But I do think there is going to be a little bit more downside in this one, that it was just, I wanted to be so long for so often for how it's just continuing. Higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, continuing to test. Now we're at that $100 very psychological level. It's just, you could, if it gets very squeezy, it could get very bad in a hurry. But I think there's, obviously, based on the position that I had paper, I think there was just more downside bias. And being able to sit along for that ride down was a nice little opportunity, a learning experience today to be a part of. And I do think there's a few more days I'm still in that paper position. I do think there's a few more days left from that volume intent that I don't think this was a panicking day or a sentiment that, oh, okay, the top is in, now it's just downtrending over. It could just find a little curl. It could just be range bound for the next few days and then eventually reclaim back to this 95 level. I could see a lot of different ideologies happening over the next few trading days from the back of this chart, but nice little trading day that I definitely would have been scaling out to with a full size position before the close of this day around this 82 to 84 level area, taking a few off to just take profits as they're there and just not play with fire. But nice one to be a part of on DWAC and KAVL. Just a weird one. This is a great example to when the hot sector is there, just don't put your attention in other stupid things. Not that this is a stupid chart. I mean, it's a low floater, nice multi-day mover. The entry that I did have on Friday, I could say that, I kind of double topped here and then rejected off of there. Maybe I should have been taking a few off into that. Or just keep it a smaller size. It was a very, very small size to begin with, again, because it was speculative, and I thought I would be potentially adding in more with more upside on it as it would potentially break 3.2, 3.4, start to test these highs again. But it's just not part of the hot sector, and if it's not, when oil is just burning hot, there's just no eyeballs to continue this type of trend. So it just started tanking off. I'd put in a stop around these 2 little candle lows here, and sure enough, it tapped through there and took the loss like a champ. But yeah, just not an A+ trade whatsoever. I gave myself a C grade for the idea. Put it in a different market environment, or put my entry in a different spot. Just the chart itself of trying to define an entry for a specific multi-day level hold potential squeeze. Not a completely terrible faultful idea, but execution-wise, got to give myself a D grade for different indicators that I could have used to be scaling out maybe a little bit, or just as we're continuing to break new lows here within that first 15, 30, 45 minutes of market open. Yeah, I should have been looking to get out or exit this trade, with not just bag hold it, to try to hold it for longer. So that's what I gave myself for that one. And that is really all I had. We got an insane amount of movers popping up on the scanner. SPY still showing not a lot of strength as of right now. We'll just continue to keep our eyes on it. Nose and ears to the grindstone. It's a new phrase I'm going to invent there. And we're getting after it day by day. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.